Hello everybody, it's Greg here with another Vim screencast, and today I want to show how easy it is to make custom completion sources when you're using nvim-cmp, that is nvim-cmp. I'm not sure how you're supposed to say that. So I've just made one to help me write commit messages, and I'm going to give you a quick demo of that. So that'll set the scene and then we'll look at the implementation. So lately I've been pairing a lot with people and I've needed to type co-authored by headers, and I got sick of typing them, so I decided to automate that a little bit. So here's an example. I'm just going to say fix things, right? Imagine I co-authored this with one of my colleagues. My snippet is COB, short for co. Oh, that is not even how it should be. CAB. It should be CAB. Why do I have it as COB? Anyway, I think I'll change that. Anyway, the idea is it pops up and I want to be able to type handles and email addresses. So I've got an auto completion for this now. So for example, I can type bits of handles, or I can type domain names, or I can type bits of people's names. So let's say I co-author that one with George Smith. I can do this as many times as I like. I can't believe I had co instead of CAB, but anyway. We'll go with Jason Random Walker for that one. So yeah, that's what it does. Now it tries to be somewhat intelligent. So for example, it'll kick in only when I type an @ and it will only do that if the @ is preceded by white space or is at the beginning of the line. So for example, if I type my email, win@winston.com, you'll notice it did not kick in because of the @ in the middle of the email address. It would only kick in after a white space. So that's the demo. I guess the other thing I could show here is that if you go to a buffer that is not of type git commit, this doesn't do anything. So it's lazily loaded on demand for that file type only. So with that out of the way, let's look at the implementation so you can see how much code is required to build one of these things. Now here's my setup for nvim-cmp, and here down the bottom you can see the list of sources that I usually use to power autocompletion. Most of those I think are by the author of nvim-cmp. There might be one or two others, like maybe the LuaSnip one, I'm not sure, possibly the Lua one, not really sure, but most of them are just standard ones. So what I want to do is I want to add to this list, and I want to do that only for git commit messages. So let's look at how that is wired up. It would be in ft plugin git commit Lua. That one there. Okay, so basically when we load one of these file types for the first time, we're going to call this winston.cmp.handles.setup function. So let's look at that, handles Lua. Now, somewhat aspirationally, I've created a folder for these because I know I'm probably going to create more, and this is the only one in it so far. But the basic name, it's called handles because it's completing GitHub handles. So let's just walk through this. There's not a lot of code. It's 85 lines for the entire buffer, so we can look at the whole thing. Basically, the setup function has this early return guard clause, so it'll only run once if it is called multiple times. And likewise, it checks to see if nvim-cmp is available and early returns if it is not available. And the last thing that it might bail out for is it will bail out if it can't read the input file that defines all of the handles and email addresses that I care about. Now, the reason why I've got these in a separate file, which I think I've got open somewhere else, yes I have. The reason why I've got these in a separate file is because I don't want to commit these in plain text to my .files repository because maybe my colleagues don't want their name and work email address leaked out to the public like that. So in here I've just got some fake email addresses, except for mine, that's real. And just for demonstration purposes, but in a real context, you might have many more names in here. You might want to automatically generate it out of some like database of all the people on your team or whatever. In my case, I actually have it committed. Let's see where I've got it. It would be handles, this one here. I've actually got it committed to my .files repo, but encrypted. So that I don't have to worry about leaking that information to places where I shouldn't be leaking it. Or where was it? I was looking at handles. This one, yeah. So basically, if this file were not present on the file system, this would just gracefully return and not actually do anything. And an example of a reason why it might not be on the file system would be, if I cloned my .files onto another machine and I hadn't decrypted them, then the file wouldn't be there, and this autocompleter would do nothing quite harmlessly. But once we've got that data, we can use the JSON decode function that comes with Vim to turn it into a data structure that we can use. And because this is Lua code, this becomes a Lua table. So a Lua table with the keys being GitHub handles and the values being name, like full name plus email address. And this basic boilerplate here is common to a lot of nvim-cmp sources, and this is a very simple completer, so I didn't need to go beyond the basic boilerplate. But basically you have a way of creating a new instance, and then you have an API that you only really need to implement as much of it as is necessary for your particular use case. So in my particular use case, I had to implement this getTriggerCharacters function, which is what is responsible for ensuring that the autocomplete only kicks in when somebody types an @ and because it is a single character, normally the autocomplete wouldn't kick in if I've only typed one character, but by putting it in this getTriggerCharacters, like as soon as I hit that @ it's going to list the possible completion straight away. And the next most important function, and really the only one that really matters in this file, is the complete function. And so it passes some useful context to you that you can use in computing what to return, but all we really care about for the purposes of this one is like what has been typed so far and like what's to the left of the cursor. So that's what these two lines do. The input looks at like what the person has typed so far in terms of, @handle, and the prefix describes what is immediately to the left of the handle. And so basically the whole thing is guarded by this big if statement that basically says, the input has to start with an @ and the prefix either has to be an @ and nothing else. That would happen, for example, if the @ was the first thing in the column 0 of the buffer, or the @ has to be preceded by a space. That's what that conditional does, and that's what stops this from kicking in like in the middle of an email address. Then, basically for all those email addresses in my data input file, I just loop over them and I create these completion items, and nvim-cmp itself will do the job of filtering them. So I don't have to do any filtering. All I have to do is say, like, these are what the completion items should look like. And so the label is what will be shown in the menu. In this case, that's the address. Address maybe isn't the best word for this because what it really is name plus email address. And text edit shows what should happen when the completion is applied or accepted by the user. So this has two values of interest here. One is new text. Well, the new text that is going to be inserted into the buffer is the name plus email address. And the range here is just a couple of relatively straightforward arithmetic calculations to say like what part of the line should be replaced with this new text. And so with that, that's all you need really to get the auto completion running, which was great. So once we've got that source, we register it with comp so it knows about it, and then we use this comp.setup.fileType call to provide a custom list of sources that includes the one that we just made, the one called handles. And the difference between this and the normal setup call is that the normal setup call is just comp.setup and you pass the list of sources in with whatever other configuration you want. And so here we're just scoping it to the git commit file type, which is great because it means it won't load and it won't incur any cost if you're not using a git commit buffer. Let me think if there's anything else that I want to say about this. Oh yeah, one last thing I want to do is show you the snippet that I defined to expand out that co-authored by thing. So let's see if I can remember that. That's in snippets. So here, cob, which I'm going to have to change to CAB, and I'm going to have to relearn change my muscle memory here. Cab. Where else am I using cob? Cob becomes cab, and it becomes cab. Okay, anyway. So let's go back there. So all this does is basically checks to see whether the handles JSON is on the file system. If it is, it's going to use the autocomplete that I just said. So basically, it'll expand to co-authored by, and it has this one placeholder that we can use. In the absence of this file, it will use a a version of the snippet with 3 placeholders. So I'll just demonstrate that now by putting some crap in here so that it won't work. So in this case, it's not cob, it's cab. In this case, you notice the snippet has 3 slots. So I could go Greg, Harol, tab, Vincent, and if I wanted to change the domain, I could do that too. And oops, and then I'm done. Okay, but certainly in my use case, most of the time I'm going to be on a machine with the handle JSON, so I'll get the other behavior that I demoed earlier. And with that, I think that's all I wanted to show today. So thanks for tuning in, and I guess I'll see you next time. Have fun writing nvim-cmp completion sources. Catch you later.